Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I thought I'd do a stream tonight because, I think the world might be ending. Good grief. Yeah. Things are just going from bad to worse, aren't they, people? I think there's quite a lot to catch up on today, which is unusual for a Saturday, but a lot of things are still happening. And the news cycle isn't quick enough if we're only doing it once a week. Even with my daily briefings, it's getting ridiculous now, the amount of news that we're getting out. So I thought we'd have to have a quick look at some of the stuff. That we won't be here that long, mate. So don't worry about it. Let me just check. Yep, we are transmitting on both channels. Right. So no slides or anything tonight. I'm just going to have a chat. Donald Tusk. Let's start with Tusk. The guy's lost his mind. Because if there's one country in the world that you don't want, or that Russia doesn't want to get, well, nobody wants Poland to get nuclear weapons because one, and I might be, you can shoot me down if you wish, but I think the Polish are a bit suspect here. Because what you've got is you've got a country that has a deep hatred for both Russians and Germans sandwiched between them. So it's I think the last people you want to give nuclear weapons to are Poland because they might actually just use them. And Russia just won't accept it. There's no chance that Russia would accept Poland having nuclear weapons. Europe would be worried then because Russia would have no option but to act. And I think Tusk is either being an idiot and playing to the crowd because it does seem that these European leaders seem to be feeding off their own insecurities and, their own misinformation because they're panicking over nothing at the moment. But for Tusk is talking about an army of 500,000, mobilizing training every Polish man to fight, every man of fighting age, training them to fight, have some kind of national service perhaps, and then have a standing army of over 500,000. What for? Because all you're doing is provoking people at that kind of level because Poland's not a global power. It doesn't need a 500,000 strong army. It's still part of NATO, allegedly. We'll see how long NATO lasts because I'll be honest, I think NATO is tearing itself apart and probably it's lasted longer than it probably should have, So I just can't get over Tusk though. This guy's meant to be a liberal witty, and they've all turned into extreme warmongers. So anyway, let's have a quick Thursday after lunch for the world ending, says Ray. Let's have a quick look at the troll room, beats and tapes. Ray, Robin, Paul, 3 straight nights of grumps. I know. What would you do? good guys. It's tough. I know. Who else we got? Julie, nice Julie. Nice to see you, Julie. You are nice as well, I guess. Paul Armstrong. How comes Russia gets to say who has nukes, who died and made them God? Well, it's not a question of that, Paul. It's a question of being pragmatic because let's face it, who got to say that Cuba couldn't have nukes? Well, America did, You think America would accept Mexico having nukes? You think America would accept Guatemala having nukes? I don't think so. So who died and made them God? It's just a question of being pragmatic. There are 3 big players in this world today. We have the United States of America, we have Russia, and we have China. And basically, one of them will decide who gets to have nukes and who doesn't. So that's basically it. And Russia, isn't going to accept a former republic of the Soviet Union having nukes on its doorstep. It's just not going to accept it. Not if you want peace. You want to live on a knife edge with the ever-present danger of nuclear war. Hey, go for it. You know, but don't say I didn't warn you. Robert says he's never eaten lunch again. Evening, John. Did you get into trouble? What did I get into trouble for? Did I? I don't know. Oh no, not at all, mate. Not at all. No, I just had to see you. What we got? Who else we got? Paul. Yeah, NATO has had a good run, Paul. You're right. I think it's probably coming to the end though. But yeah, I mean, conventional weapons are pretty bad as it is, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But you know, nuclear weapons are meant to be a deterrent. We're not supposed to use them, are we? And there's the more people that have them, the bigger the temptation will be to use them. So I think non-proliferation is still a good thing, especially when you give it to people, especially when people who have a propensity for using these things gets them. That's what worries me about places like Pakistan and India. You know, have you ever seen the Deccan Flats? India could look like that again if they started. Anyway, I think they still are, mate. I think they still are. So Ray said NATO was run by ex-Nazis up until about 1980. Yeah, well, the jury's still out, isn't it? They could well still be. Let's see if we've got any chat in the other channel. No, I don't. That's fine. Right. So that's Donald Tusk for us, and it's worrying. You know, I mean, this talking about ramping up and rearming Europe. The last time that happened, things didn't work out well for anybody. You know, in real terms. I can't understand why. And then we look at places like and we saw this yesterday when we looked briefly at that map about people that were more inclined to fight for their country, and we're talking about places like Estonia and Latvia and all the Baltic states and Finland. And these people have always been on the border of Russia or have been actual republics of the federal Soviet this Soviet Union. Sorry, I'm slurring my words and I've not had a drink. I've not had a drink because I don't drink on Saturdays, do I? Because I told you last night I only drink twice a week. So where was I? So that's Donald Tusk. Yeah, the guy worries me. He does worry me, and I'm not happy about Poland being so belligerent. You know, everybody looks at Poland and goes, "Well, they don't have any crime problem because they don't let they don't let anyone in. You know, they have a big fence and they don't let people in." And yeah, that's fine, but they also have a very insular attitude to the rest of Europe as well. They don't play nice. And I've seen that with Poles, from personal experience. They don't play nice with other people. They're fine with their own people, but they don't play nice with other people. Well, they don't mix with other people, Very insular people. And probably nice enough if you go to their country, but then again, so are Germans. They're lovely in their own country. Go to Spain and try and get a sunbed, though. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Well, let's speak about Germany, because someone tweeted today that, oh, well done, Vlad, you have awoken the sleeping tiger. Germany will rearm, reindustrialize, and start producing high quality arms and things for Germany and the rest of NATO. With what? With what? Because Germany is in an energy deficit, doesn't have anything to build with. Its major companies have relocated to China, BASF being one of them. Volkswagen Audi Group are closing at least 3 factories, I think, probably more, because nobody's buying their cars. Because everybody's broke. China's in a recession. Not China. Germany's in a recession. So you're going to build your way out of it on the pretext of a war, like we did after the Second World War. But the war always comes to an end, and then you've got to take the pain. You know, I mean, remember, Britain still had rations after the Second World War. I think they had rationing up into the 50s because we didn't have any money. Germany came out of it better because that got funded from the States. But I think we can look at the States these days and say, certainly under Trump, you're not going to get the same kind of handouts and free ride that you had before. And I think that's probably a good thing from the States' perspective. And I was listening to some Indonesian guy who's apparently a world famous. I really should take note of people's names, shouldn't I? But apparently he's a world famous geopolitical expert, and he was making sense. It sounded sensible to me. He's saying in geopolitics, there's no friends. You know, every country will always ultimately look after its own interests, even if it means dumping your allies and your friends. And effectively, that's what America's doing just now. It's looking after its own interests. And I think that's a sensible approach. And maybe it's something that Britain should be doing instead of running, you know, effectively, we're running the Ukraine war at the moment, aren't we? You know, we're pulling Zelensky's strings. We're keeping them going. You know, and we're pushing Europe into the same. It's a toss-up, I suppose, between Macron and Starmer, but I think ultimately the UK is running Zelensky. And that leads me to Trump. So what's Trump trying to do? He's trying to broker a deal, and I don't understand this because maybe Trump should just have walked away, because he did mention that before he was inaugurated, that you know America just has no interest in it anymore. And I can understand that, because again, they need to look after their own interests. And if their own interests are not served in any way by Ukraine now, you know, the Biden administration, Newland, Blinken, et al., they just made a complete hash of Ukraine, didn't they? I mean, the idea for Ukraine was to turn it into a good customer for the EU and for America. Because really, Ukraine was an industrial powerhouse under the Soviet Union. Ukraine made aircraft carriers, Ukraine made rockets, Ukraine made arms and missiles, Ukraine could make aircraft, Ukraine had car factories. Ukraine had all these things. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, these things were all sold off and repurposed, and you know, with the promise that the EU would be able to provide this stuff and they could just buy it, you know, at a cheaper cost. And that never really happened, did it? It just became a vassal state in the political game between the US and Russia. And the US, the EU, and Russia have always had this thing where the Western countries seem to want to run Russia down. And it doesn't appear to be working, because despite these sanctions, Russia still is doing relatively okay. I'm not saying it's doing great, but it's nowhere near as bad as you would read in the mainstream papers. So what's Trump's end game here? Because he's already on record saying that Russia's easier to deal with and talk to than Ukraine is, because Zelensky's not bending on anything, because I think Starmer and Macron are in his ear, telling him not to. Because, let's be honest, I think the UK's special relationship with the USA is in the toilet. And pretty much our relationship with Europe's in the toilet as well now, because I don't think Starmer's as respected as he thinks he is, or our papers think he is. It certainly doesn't seem to be doing anything right, because everybody seems to be poo-pooing his ideas. But he is still working working Zelensky. And again, we go back to what is Trump's game. So what's his get out? You know, how does he get out of this mess? Because if he can't deal with Ukraine, I mean, they're going to meet. I think the Americans are meeting Ukraine this week in Saudi Arabia. And I think what they're going to try and get is agreement to a ceasefire, maybe. I don't know if they'll get it. I don't think they will. And if they get that, they would then go back to Russia with that as the bargaining chip and, you know, see if Putin will bend. But Putin's already said no ceasefire, no slacking off, nothing, just full bore. Had enough, done. And if they don't get a ceasefire in Saudi Arabia, if they don't get agreement, a tentative agreement to a ceasefire, that's probably when Trump will turn around and go, right, we're out, and just walk away and leave it. And just say, Starmer, when you go, your mess, you clean it up. Because ultimately, I think it is the UK's mess. I think we had more to do with 2022 than America did. I think we kind of bullied Biden into it, or coerced them, or cajoled them, or however. But I think the UK had some kind of agenda. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they thought they could, using war, spend their way out of a recession and improve our economy, but it's not working. It's just not working, is it? So I think that's what might happen this week. Trump might just turn around and go, yep, get on with it. And then we look at other messes that have been made, usually by the US, because look at what's happening in Syria just now. It's horrific. So I don't know if you're seeing it in the mainstream news or whatever, but the government, Al-Yulani or whatever his name is, his people are going door to door and killing entire Christian families just because they're Christian. Don't fall into the ideology that the country now supports. So these people that have been persecuted and killed are fleeing. And a lot of them have fled to the Russian airbase, who are taking them in and protecting them. You know, the guy who's running Syria now was a terrorist. He had a $10 million bounty on his head from the US. But obviously he served some kind of purpose because that's no longer, you know, there. And the US seemed to have accepted him as Syria's bona fide leader, although he's now killing his own people because they have a different religion. That's horrific. Whole families, women, children, men. No mercy, no quarter. That's just horrible. And I can't excuse that. So you're in that cult. We need to stop pandering. We need to stop pandering to cults. That's the problem. And we need to do that across the board because we pander to cults. And it just doesn't work. And it's certainly not working in Britain. It's not working in Germany. It's not working in France. It's not working in Sweden, although Sweden have said they're taking no more immigration. I don't know what's happening in Denmark because apparently they banned halal foods. I'll need to check up on that and see if it's made any difference. But yeah, it's just not working, is it? And you know, it's happened before. A certain cult took over Spain, and it took the Spanish 500 years to throw them out. So if you've got 500 years to fight and throw out a cult that takes over your country, you know, that's how many generations? What, 20? I don't know, maybe more. You know, that's a lot of people that are going to have to suffer at the hands because it's not a progressive cult. So we see. Yeah. Yeah, Ray says we have a 100-year deal with Ukraine that will bankrupt us unless Russia loses. Yeah, Russia's not losing, mate. Have you seen what's happened in Kursk? Because I think they've closed the gap. I think Russia's put the hammer down. There's talk of between 4,000 and 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers basically cut off, um, which militarily is an incredibly stupid mistake to make. So you've got to blame the higher echelon of Ukraine military, and obviously you've got to eventually blame Zelensky for allowing this to happen. Those men should have been brought out of there many months ago, because all you were doing was occupying a small part of Russia for propaganda purposes. That's all it was. PR. Sarah in the vertical chat says she's Croatian has been following me since you made me die of laughter with Rabba Laba Ding Dong. All I know is that Trump and Putin want peace. Well, it does seem to be that way, Sarah. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Zelensky wants more money for his policies. Yeah, well, that kind of does. European leaders have no clue about anything. Weak leaders with no knowledge about anything. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the European leaders. I don't know if you saw the show last night when we had that little clip from Kaja Kallas, and she's just awful, absolutely awful. And she was the leader of Estonia, and now she's working for von der Leyen as her defense secretary, kind of equivalent type thing. I mean, these people are nuts. They really are. And they're they are very naive. They really are naive. Hey, so Robert's had some life. He dated the daughter of the ex-chairman of Volkswagen. Well, there you go. Did you get a free car? No. Where are we now? Yeah, the Kursk thing's going to be bad. When the guys are cut off and they're deep doo-doo. They've either got to surrender promptly or things won't go well. It's not a situation you want to wish on anyone of either side. So we'll see what happens there. So we've covered Ukraine, Trump, Syria. What about? We actually covered Netanyahu quite a lot last night, so we don't really need to cover him much this today. Thanks for that information, Robin. So did you hear it? Have you heard about the guy Enoch Burke? You know, the teacher from Ireland who had I suppose is a question, had a transgender pupil, and because of his Christian beliefs, refused to kind of accept the ideology that was being foisted upon him, and would not use indeterminate pronouns. So the guy has spent 500 days in prison because of this, and the Irish state are trying to take away all his assets, strip him of his salary and his assets, because he won't say they. I'm sorry, but is that not a disproportionate response? I mean, that to me appears to be some kind of unusual cruelty to inflict on someone. It's just crazy. He should be, I don't know if he can or not, but surely he should be going to the European Court of Human Rights, because this is out of order. What are Ireland trying to prove here? Everybody that seems to be slightly left of centre seems to have become a downright authoritarian. In fact, they seem to have gone slightly left of centre and then jumped to the other side. And I mean real far. It's just crazy. Just absolutely crazy. The world is nuts. It really is. But I think the biggest threat we've got at the moment seems to be Tusk now. He seems to be taking up the mantle of trying to start World War III. Claiming, talking to Macron about nuclear weapons and things. And let's face it, we've discussed the French nuclear weapons. They don't have that many, but the problem is if you give them to Poland, they're then in striking distance of Russia, whereas in France they're not, apart from the subs. And you're not going to give a submarine to Poland, are you? I would hope not. It's a good point, Robin. Why do we employ historians? Because if we look back at history, everything that we're talking about has really been done before. And you can see what happened. And it didn't play out well. So why don't we? Why don't we listen to our historians? Why don't we read the books? Why don't we learn the lessons? It seems to be we're doomed to repeat our mistakes time after time. Sons repeat their father's mistakes. Daughters repeat their mother's mistakes. Am I being misogynist by saying that? I don't care. But yeah, it is International Women's Day. Did you know that? Is there an International Men's Day? I don't know. In other news, it would appear that I think when we reported it, we said that we thought Gene Hackman's wife had died some considerable time before he had. It turned out to be about a week apparently, and he died of a heart condition. I think about a week later. She apparently died of hantavirus, and I have no idea what hantavirus is. Do you not get that from ticks or something? I'd need to look that one up. But yeah, I don't know what happened to the dog. They haven't mentioned the dog though, because that died as well. Remember, one of them, the three dogs, and luckily nobody was eaten. I can't believe I've said that. I found some interesting stuff out today as well. It appears that you can't criticize China on this channel now. People get or your stuff gets throttled. So that's interesting. I wonder how that one works. Ray. Cheers, Ray. I'm sure they'll be very happy at that. Right. So what's happening next? I think that's the main big things, really. I don't think there's an awful lot else that we need to go through, do we? When is this? Share your memories of lockdown as UK to mark COVID Day of Reflection. Oh, good grief. Beats and tapes. I think the dog done himself. Self-termination event for the dog. Right, that's just a little half hour, I think, this evening. I hope you've enjoyed that. Or maybe not. It's been quite doom and gloom today, but apart from the fact that the sun was out, I can't really say anything uplifting. Oh, what about the clown that climbed up the Queen Elizabeth Tower? You'll probably know it as Big Ben, but remember, Big Ben is indeed the bell. So someone climbed up the Queen Elizabeth Tower, or the Elizabeth Tower, or whatever, and is protesting Palestine. What a clown! I still don't understand what we were meant to do there. Oh, and have you seen the latest French trend? Oh, I did. I did that last night, didn't I? Leaving pigs' heads in high trafficked areas. Oh, French are nuts. I'm actually watching a clip on Twitter right now of French women who seem to love to get their boobies out, don't they? They're storming about saying fascist epidemic with naked from the waist up. They're nuts. They really are nuts. Yes, Big Ben is the bell, Robin. I did point that out. Right. I think that covers it. I think that covers it for tonight. You leaping on to something, Red Eye? Or are you not bothering? I think I'm gonna have an early night tonight. I need to do some tidying up tomorrow because I think the wife's got to bake a cake. So need to get that done. Been working on my diesel heater as well. It stopped working, so I've ordered a new glow plug. Because of course I broke it taking it out, didn't I? Yeah. But it's less than a tenner, so that's not too bad. Short and sweet. Thank you, Robin. I do try, mate. I do try. And it's as always, been great for you.